Mangalam sadhu veshaya shishya chita vilasine vidita kila vedyaya moksha vigna vighatine Swami Kashi nivasaya deshikaya viragine Chaitanyananda rupaya jivan muktaya mangalam Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahe Tejasvina Vadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahe Om Shanti 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 Bolo Shri Sadgurudev Swami Sivananda Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Sadgurudev Swami Sivananda Maharaj Ki Jai. Shanti Mantra. Bhadram karane bhishrunuyama devaha Bhadram pashyemakshabirya jatraha Stirair stushtuva vayashema devahitam yadayuhu Swastina Indro Vridhashravaha Swastina Pusha Vishvavedaha Swastina Starkshoranishtanemihi Swastino Brihaspatir Dadhatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Good afternoon. In the previous lectures, we have learned the first three padas, the first three parts of the self, or to be more precise, the divisions of the experiences of the self in the first three states, which are waking state, the dream state, and the deep sleep state. And today we are going to study the last pada, the last part, which is called Turiya. We will follow Shankaracharya very much through his commentary. It is quite long. I don't know if we will manage to do everything, but we will see what we are able to do and try to understand. Okay, this is basically the heart of this Upanishad. This is the heart of the teaching. Shankaracharya has a commentary that starts before the mantra itself. He says, the fourth quarter, which is arrived at in due order, has to be explained. Okay, so Shankara is opening, telling us, now we are going to discuss the last quarter, the last pada. Hence follows the mantra, not conscious of the internal objects, etc. Since it, Turiya, is devoid of all characteristics that can be expressed by words, it is indescribable by words. Hence, Turiya is indicated by a negation of all characteristics. All of you were very curious about this fourth path. What is it? And maybe you were expecting that today we will learn and I will tell you, listen, the fourth pada is this and that, and it has these characteristics and these attributes. But truly, we are not going to learn anything like this. Actually, everything we are going to say, we are just going to say what it is not. We are just going to describe it through negation. So Shankaracharya explains why. He says because it has no characteristics and it has no attributes. Therefore, the explanation that is going to come is going to be explanation through negation. Okay? If somebody enters this room and asks, who is Swami Kashi? So one way is to point to me and say, this is Swami Kashi. Another way is to say, okay, you see all the ladies here, they are not Swami Kashi. Okay? And this guy, this guy, this guy, and this one also are not Swami Kashi. That's it. You don't need to say further, right? Because the only option left is that which is Swami Kashi. So when you don't have characteristics, when you don't have attributes to describe something, this is the way you are able to do it. You can say what it is not. You can negate anything which is not. And what is left after all negations is that which you are looking for. This system, this method, is being called in the Upanishads neti-neti. Neti-neti is a system in which we negate things, and through negation we arrive at conclusion. The word neti, actually it is two words. It is na, iti. Iti means this, and na means not. It is not this, and it is not this, and it is not that, and it is not that. So what is left is what you are looking for. Now the Purva Paksha is asking. Purva Paksha is the objector. Usually Shankaracharya and other classical commentators, they write their commentary in the form of a discussion between the Siddhanta, the one who is presenting the subject matter, and objectors. Those who have objections, they are called Purva Pakshis. Purva Pakshi is one who is trying to argue. Okay, he is trying to bring a counter argument to negate what the Siddhantin is telling us. So now Shankaracharya is presenting a Purva Paksha. He is presenting a objection. What is the objection? Then it is a mere void. Shunyam eva tarhitat. This is in Sanskrit. He says, if you are just negating what it is not, then what is left is just shunya, void. This is basically what the Buddhist philosophy is asserting, is holding. According to Buddhist philosophy, everything is changeable. Nothing has a self. In other words, nothing is independent in itself. Everything depends on something else, and nothing has an existence of its own, and therefore the ultimate reality is shunya. It doesn't have any, there's no any basis. There's nothing which is permanent, there's nothing which is real. Okay? So here the Purva Pakshi, here the person who is objecting, he is a Buddhist. He's saying in that case, if it is only a negation of everything else, then it is just shunya, it is just a void. Now the Siddhanta is telling us, no, it is not so. Because an illusion cannot exist without a substratum. This is a very, very important. Once, some years ago, I had a debate, an argument with a Buddhist teacher, and I gave her this argument. That was the end of the discussion. Because it is very strong. He says, Shankaracharya, every illusion must have a substratum. You cannot have an illusion without something at the ground of it. We gave the example of the snake and the rope. Okay, you remember all this example? Anyone was not here at that time? I can repeat it. There is a person walking in the garden, sees a snake by his feet. He is afraid to move. He is calling a friend from the house, asking him or her to bring a flashlight. When the friend is bringing the flashlight and turning the flashlight on the snake, he realizes this is not a snake, this is just a rope. Okay, this is the analogy. It is called in Sanskrit Raju Sarpa Nyaya. The Nyaya, or the analogy of the Raju, the snake, and the Sarpa. The Raju is the rope and Sarpa is the snake. Okay? So, in order to see an imaginary snake, you need a substratum which is in the form of a rope. You cannot imagine something where there is no any substratum. Shankaracharya is going later on, we are going to discuss it further. He will give us some more interesting examples. Okay? The illusion of such, oh, he is doing it now. The illusions such as silver, snake, man, and mirage cannot be thought of as existing without the substrata, such as the mother of pearl, rope, stump of a tree, and desert. So now Shankaracharya is giving us all the classical nyayas, all the classical examples that are showing this superimposition. You remember what is superimposition? To impose the snake over a rope is a superimposition. Okay, we impose something illusory upon something which is real. So this is one example. The second example that he is giving is the Shukti Rajata. Shukti Rajata is the mother of pearl and silver. A person is walking on the beach and suddenly inside the water he sees silver. And he wants very much to get it because he needs some money, and so he is diving and he is pulling this silver out. When he brings it to the surface, he realizes this is a shell. This is a mother of pearl. There is no silver there. It was just an illusion. There is no silver. It is just a mother of pearl. You know what is mother of pearl? That, what you call it? A conch. Yeah. Okay, so this is the second. What is the difference between the example of the snake and the rope and the example of the mother of pearl and silver? Is the emotion behind it. The emotion behind the snake and the rope is fear. Okay, due to fear there is ignorance. When it comes to the mother of pearl and silver, the emotion behind it is greed. So we can see that different types of negative emotions or feelings can lead us to illusion. Okay, that's why we use different. The next one is the man and the post, stambhanara. Stambhanara. A man is sitting expecting his friend to come. It is evening, it is like almost, it is maybe a night with some moonlight, and he is sitting in his balcony waiting for his friend to come. Suddenly he sees something, and he is sure his friend is coming. And he is waiting for that to come, and it is not getting closer, any closer. And he keeps looking, and it still looks like his friend, but it is not moving. Ultimately, when he turns on the light, he realizes it is just a post, it is just a pillar. And he imagined it to be a person. How many times we all do it, right? We imagine something to be a person or an animal or something, and then we realize it is some inanimate object. Okay? Here you can say maybe it is the emotion of expectation. Okay? Or something like this. The next example which Shankara is giving us is the mirage in the desert. It is called Mriga Trishna Nyaya. The analogy of the Mriga means a deer. Okay? A deer is walking in the desert, and the deer is very thirsty. And suddenly it sees water in the distance. And it starts running and running towards the water. And the further the deer runs, so the further the water appears to be. Right? We call it a mirage. What he sees is not really water, it's just the illusion in the desert. Ultimately, the deer fall and dies. Okay, this is, we say that here this is thirst. Thirst symbolizes desire. So here it is due to desire that there is an illusion. Okay? Swami Vivekananda tells that once he was walking in the deserts of Rajasthan, when there was time he was like a wandering monk. And he saw, it really happened to him. He was so thirsty, and he saw water, and he started walking towards it. And the more he went, the further he went, the further it appeared to be. And then he realized that this is useless. And he was so happy because he could actually see this nyaya walking, you know. So Shankaracharya is giving all these examples to show that in all of them, there must be some substrata, something at the foundation must be there for the appearance to appear. For the snake, there must be a rope. For the man, there must be a post. For the silver, there must be the mother of pearl, right? For the water, there must be the sand of the desert. So everywhere we see that when we have an illusion, this illusion has a substratum. In the same way, when we say that the whole world is an illusion, when we negate the three quarters of wake, dream, and sleep, there must be some substratum. Where is the locus of these three? Where it is located, there must be something underneath. And this is the Chaturta, this is the Turiya, the fourth state. Okay? Again, the Purva Paksha is asking. Purva Paksha is the objector. If that be so, Turiya should be indicated by words and not by negations of attributes, for it is the substratum of all notions such as prana, just as jar, etc., which contain water, etc., are indicated by words. The objector says, if this Turiya, the fourth state, is the substratum of all the other three, it should be described by words. Just as we describe a jar which contains different objects, we describe it by words. Jar here is being used for all objects. Okay, it is the word is just with any object, we are describing it through words. So if this is the substratum, you see the jar is holding water, is the kind of the substratum, it is holding the water. Or if you want to say the clay is the substratum of jar, right? So clay is being described by words. In the same way, if this is the substratum of everything, there must be some words to describe it also. Is it not? This is the objection. The Siddhantin is answering, not so, na. In Sanskrit it is, the objection always is coming in iti chet. Iti chet is it not so? And then it says, na, no, it is not so. Why? Because the notion of prana, etc., is unreal, like the false notion of silver, etc., in the mother of pearl. Shankaracharya says, when you give the example of the pot that is holding the water, etc., this is okay. The substratum is real, and that which is coming out of it is also real, right? Then it is not a problem. Both of them can be described by words, but this is not our case. In our case, we are talking about imaginary notion. It is not, you cannot describe something, he says, because the notion of prana, etc., is unreal, like the false notion of the silver, etc., in the mother of pearl. Okay? The relation between the real and the unreal is not expressible to words inasmuch as the relation itself does not exist. Okay, here we are getting to the question of relation between a cause and effect. Okay, when we talk about the clay and the pot, they have the relation of a cause and effect, right? The clay is the cause for the pot. If the clay is the cause of the pot, then if the clay is real, the pot is real. If the clay is unreal, the pot is unreal. For example, in dream, the clay dream is unreal, and therefore the clay pot will also be unreal. You cannot make real pot from dream clay, right? Or you cannot make dream pot from real clay, right? So we have a direct connection between them. But in our case, it is not so, because the connection between the snake and the rope, there is no connection whatsoever. Can you say that because the snake is poisonous, the rope also must be poisonous? No. Why? Because there is no connection between them. This is an imagination. It is an imaginary connection. It is a superimposition. If the rope was really the cause of the snake, they should have the same attributes, right? Look at this. This is a wooden, what do you call it? Pod? How do you call this thing? Stand? Pod? Huh?
Small table.
Yeah, small table. Okay. Okay, this is a wooden table. Okay? And by the way, this is a very interesting how language works, you know? When, if you are a little bit interested in language, you will find it interesting, right? We say a wooden table, right? So we have here two things. We have the noun and we have the adjective, right? Noun is used to describe adjective is used to describe the noun, correct? This is the way it works. We have a noun, this is an object, and there is an adjective which is describing it. Okay? So when we say wooden table, what is the noun? Table. And what is the adjective? Wooden. Right? So now think about it. What really we have here? Do we have here a table or do we have here a wood? We have wood. Table is just a name which is given to a particular shape of wood. Actually, it is only wood, and this wood has an attribute which is table, having the shape of a table. So really, thinking about it, we should say tablish wood. Right? We should not say wooden table. Because what we have here is only wood. But our language, our whole notion is focused on the effects and not on the causes. And we are forgetting, we are not able to see what is really there. We are forgetting the wood and we are taking the table as real. As a matter of fact, there is no such a thing as table. Table is just a notion which is connected to the wood. Okay? So going back to our thing, Shankaracharya says, there is no connection between the snake and the rope whatsoever. And therefore, you cannot say that just like you describe a pot and the clay, therefore, you cannot say that just as you describe the pot and therefore you can describe the clay also by words, we can take this here and say that because you can describe the three states, you can also describe that which is the substratum. Because there is no real connection between the substratum and the three states. You understand me? I will say it again. It was a little bit subtle. The three states are imaginary, according to Advaita Vedanta. The three states of wake, dream, and sleep. They are ultimately false. Now, the substratum, which is going to be the fourth state, that which is real, is real. So we have something which is real as the substratum, like the rope, and we have something which is superimposed of it, like the snake. This is the three states. Okay? So the objector says, why we should not be able to describe them by words? Then the Siddhantin says, no, you cannot describe them because there is no real connection between them. One is real and the other one is unreal. Therefore, you can only use the negation. Only through negation you can describe it. The fact that you can describe the three states doesn't mean that you can describe by positive words the substratum. Okay, is it clear? Turiya, by its own nature, is not an object of any other means of knowledge like cow, etc., being devoid of attributes. Okay? What is the problem with describing Turiya? Why we are so reluctant to say anything positive about Turiya? The answer is that it doesn't have any attributes. Cow, he gives the example of cow. It is all classical examples. It is just cow here stands for all objects, okay? So cow has attributes. What are the attributes of cow? They will say cowness, okay? Cowness is the attributes of cow. What is cowness? When you see a cow, you know it is a cow. That which makes it a cow, this is called cowness. It sounds very funny in English, but in the Nyaya philosophy, this is the major subject. We are discussing about these things. And so every object has its own jati, its own, it's called generic attributes. Okay? And, but here, Turiya, the substratum doesn't have any generic attributes. Therefore, something which has no attributes cannot be described. When I describe anything, right, I describe this table, what I'm going to describe? I'm going to describe its attributes. But then if there is something which has no attributes, what am I going to describe? There's nothing to describe. It, being without a second, does not belong to any category like cow, since it is devoid of generic attributes. Okay, this is what he says. There is actually, it is very, you see, yesterday I think I told to some of you that if you really want to understand Vedanta, you need to understand all the other 5 schools of philosophy. And here, when you study this in the Sanskrit, if you understand Nyaya and Vaisheshika and all these systems, you really be able to appreciate in a different way. Because he is now here relating directly to what all these systems are saying, and he is using their own systems to defeat them. But we don't have here the tools to discuss it, so we take it on a more general way. Okay? Nor has it any activity like, for instance, that of a cook, since it is devoid of all actions. Basically, in the Vaisheshika system, they divide reality into 7 categories. Okay, there is Dravya, Guna, Karma, Samanya, Vishesha, Asamavaya, Abhava. These are the 7 categories that divide all reality. And Shankaracharya is taking them one by one and show how this Turiya, this 4th part, is not falling into any of these categories. Okay, this is basically what he is doing here, and of course we don't have the time to explain it further. Nor has it any attributes such as blueness. This is guna. Okay, guna is the attributes. It doesn't have any attributes, since it is free from attributes. Therefore, it cannot be indicated by any name. So something which doesn't have dravya, guna, karma, and all these categories, cannot be described by any name, because name can be associated only to something which is falling into this. Okay? Again, the Purva Paksha has a question. Then, like the horns of the hare, it becomes unworthy. You remember I gave you the example of asat. We had in one of our classes, we discussed the difference between sat, mithya, and asat. You remember? Doesn't matter. Asat, sat means reality, that which is real, that it is always real, it never changes. Okay, mithya means that which appears to be. that which is appearance. For example, the snake is mithya, it's just an appearance, there is no snake there. And then there is asat. Asat is something that doesn't exist, neither in the past, nor in the present, nor in the future. What are the classic examples? So we gave few. One is the son of the barren woman. A woman who is barren, who has no children, cannot have a son. Okay, so if you talk about the son of a barren woman, it is asat. Another example that we gave is the teeth of the crow. Right? What is the color of the teeth of the crow? Crows have no teeth. Okay? And the example which is given here is the horns of the hare. Hare means rabbit. Have you seen the horns of the hare? Rabbits have no horns. And therefore, the horns of the hare is asat. So the Purva-paksha says, if there is nothing to say about it, if it has no attributes, if it doesn't fall into any of these categories, then it is asat. It doesn't exist and it is over, it is finished. Again, the Siddhanti says, not so. Because just as on knowing the nature of the mother of pearl, the longing for the silver ceases, so too the knowledge of Turiya as one's own self leads to the cessation of the longing for all objects that are non-self. Shankaracharya says here, no. It is very valuable to discuss it in this negative way. Why? He says in the same way that a person who realizes that the silver he sees in the water is not silver but it is the mother of pearl, loses the desire for this silver, right? The person who looks in the water, he sees silver, he says, hey, silver. And then he says, oh no, it is mother of pearl. The moment he sees the silver, he has a desire, I want it. What happens the moment he realizes this is the mother of pearl? He says, it's worthless. So his longing, his desire for something which is imaginary is completely ceasing when he realizes its true nature. In the same way, Shankara says, when a person realizes the unreality of this world in the form of these three states, then the desire for it, the attachment to it, and all the sorrows that follow, they all cease. Therefore, even though you cannot describe it, you cannot say anything about it, it is still very valuable to negate it, to negate all the other things. Because the negation of the other things will help us to get rid of all of our attachments and desires and all of our false notions. Therefore, he says, it is very valuable. When Turiya is realized as the self, there cannot be any such evil as ignorance, longing, and the like, and there is no reason why Turiya should not be realized as identical with the self. For all the Upanishads conclude with this as their burden, as is evident from passages such as Tat Tvam Asi, that thou art, etc. He's giving some other quotations here. So he says, when finally you realize the true nature of the self, you realize Turiya, all the sorrow, all the pain, all the evils that come with the ignorance, that it is associated with the identification that comes with these three states, is going to end. Suffering is going to end. And therefore it is very, very meaningful, very valuable. Even though you cannot describe it directly, the negation of the opposite is very important because it is going to lead to our goal. You remember what was our goal in the first class we discussed about it. Our goal was Advaita Bhava, realization of Advaita, realization of non-duality. Why? Because this is leading to the cessation of all suffering. This very self has been described as both the real and the unreal, and as possessed of 4 quarters. So the self in this Upanishad is being described both as the real and the unreal. When is it described as the unreal? In the first 3 padas, right? Wake, dream, and sleep. They are considered to be unreal. They are considered to be as modifications of the mind, right? The first 2 is when the mind is projecting, and the third one in deep sleep is when the mind is when consciousness is dense. We have seen yesterday. So all the 3 are unreal, and Turiya is the real one. So the self is including everything, is including both the real and the unreal. Its unreal nature is said to be constituted by ignorance in the same way as a snake is superimposed on a rope, and has for its characteristics the first 3 quarters, which occupy the place of the seed and the sprout. Okay, so this is what we just said. Shankara says that the self is, when it is taken like the snake, in the example of the snake and the rope, because when we look at the snake and the rope, both of them together constitute the rope, right? Constitute what is there. The real and the unreal. The unreal is the snake and the real is the rope. Both of them together are there. Okay? So in the same way, he says that the first 3 are constituting that which is unreal, which is superimposed upon that which is real, which is the 4th one. And they have for its characteristics the first 3 quarters, which occupy the place of the seed and the sprout. Okay, the seed and the sprout means the cause and effect. In these 3 states, we are experiencing, in the first 2 states, in wake and dream, we experienced cause and effect. And in the deep sleep, we are experiencing only the cause. Okay, we don't have time to get deep into it. This is another subject, the relationship between cause and effect. But this is what he means it by seed and the sprout. Now is described Turiya by the following mantra: not conscious of the internal world, etc. This is the mantra that we are going to chant right now, which is not of the nature of cause, but of the supreme reality, and which occupies the place of a rope, etc., by negating the 3 states already spoken of, which occupy the place of a snake, etc. So when we talk about the sprout and the seed and the sprout, we said that when the sprout is real, when the seed is real, when the seed is real, the sprout is real. When one is unreal, the other is also unreal, right? But he says in our case now, we have related to the 3 states as the snake. And now we are going to describe the rope. We are going to describe the substratum, that which is at the foundation, which is real. And that which is occupying the place of the rope. This is what we are going to describe now. Okay, and this is mantra number 7. So let us chant it together, explain it, and then continue with the time left with Shankara's commentary. It is nice, huh? It is very, very beautiful, very inspiring. Shankara's, you can see here in this commentary Shankara's genius. He was such a great teacher. Okay, mantra number 7. Please repeat after me. Nanta pragyam, na bahish pragyam, na no bhayata pragyam, na pragya, na pragya. Sorry, I skipped. Na pragyana ghanam, na pragyam, na pragyam, adrishtam, avyavaharyam, agrahyam, alakshanam, achintyam, avyapadeshyam, ekatma pratyayasaram, ekatma pratyayasaram, prapanchopashamam, shantam, shivam, advaitam, chaturtham manyante, sa atma, sa vigneyaha, nanta pragyam na bahish pragyam no bhayata pragyam na pragyana ghanam na pragyam adrishtam avyavaharyam agrahyam alakshanam achintyam avyapadeshyam ekatma pratyayasaram prapanchopashamam shantam shivam advaitam chaturtam manyante sa atma sa vigneyaha. As you can see, it is a long list of negating different attributes. Na anta pragyam. It is not awareness of the internal. Anta pragya means being aware of that which is internal. This is the negation of dream. Right? In dream, when we describe dream, the mantra of dream was, swapnasthano antara pragyam, swapnasthano anta pragya. That was the beginning of the mantra number 4. Okay, so here we are negating. It is not the dream. It is not aware of the internal objects. Na bahish pragyam. Bahish pragyam is awareness of the external. It is not also awareness of the external. This is negation of waking state. Okay? Now ubhayata pragyam. Ubhayata means both. It is not also cognition or knowledge of both internal and external. Shankaracharya will explain. He says this is the state between wakefulness and dream. It is not that. Na pragyana ghanam. It is not also dance with consciousness. What is dance with consciousness? This is deep sleep. You remember? So he says it is not that. Na pragyam, na apragyam. So it is not consciousness. Shankaracharya will explain to us. This refers to awareness of all of them together. It is not all of them put together. And na apragyam. Apragyam means unconsciousness. It is not also unconsciousness. Somebody may say, okay, it is not conscious of any of these, therefore it is unconsciousness. He says, no, it is not unconsciousness. It is not inert. Then he says, adrishyam. It cannot be seen. You cannot see it. Avyavaharyam. Avyavaharyam, it cannot be comprehended. It is incomprehensible. Vyavahara means the mundane existence. This reality is called Vyavahara. So it doesn't have Vyavahara. You cannot comprehend it. Agrahyam. Grahyam, the root gri means to grasp, to hold to. So it cannot be grasped. That is the idea. Agrahyam. Alakshanam. Lakshana means inference. Something which indicates something else. So it cannot be indicated. Okay? Achintyam. You cannot think about it. It is unthinkable. Avyapadeshyam. It cannot be described by words. Let me see how it... Yeah, indescribable, yes. Okay. Alakshanam achintyam avyapadeshyam eka atma pratyaya saram. It is of the nature whose proof consists in the identity of the self in all states. Eka atma pratyaya saram. It is in which all, whose proof consists in the identity of the self. We will see later on what Shankara is saying about it. Prapancha upashamam. It is the cessation of prapancha. Prapancha means the manifestation of the world. It is the upashama means the cessation, the end. It is the end of prapancha. Prapancha means the manifestation. Shantam. What is Shantam? It is peaceful. And Shivam. Shiva means auspicious. You know, Shiva means auspiciousness. Lord Shiva is the Lord of auspiciousness. So Shivam means it is auspicious. And Advaitam. Advaita means non-dual. And it is Chaturtam. Chaturtam manyante. Manyante means it is considered to be Chaturtam, the fourth. Why it is considered to be? Because truly speaking, it is not the fourth. It is not a state. Wake is a state. Dream is a state. Sleep is state. But the fourth one is not a state. It is called so only because it is different than the first three. Only because it is neither of the first three, it is also called a state. But in itself, it's not a state. It is not that you are, and this is something that we need to understand, because normally we are imagining, people are talking about getting moksha, getting liberation. So we are saying, I need to get liberation. What is getting liberation? I go to the super and I pay and I buy liberation, I get it. Like I buy milk. But liberation is not really something you need to get. It is not a state. It is not something you need to achieve. You are liberated. But on top of it, there is ignorance. On top of it, there is identification and ignorance and all this stuff, and therefore there is suffering. The very negation of all these false notions is what is the meaning of liberation. You don't need to get liberation, to do something. If liberation was something you need to get, to achieve, then you will also lose it, right? When I get milk in the super, I may lose it, may go, or I may after I drink it, it is no more. But liberation is not like this. It is my true nature, so I don't need to get it. It is already here. It is already what I am. Shantam, it is peaceful. It is peaceful because the very nature of the self is Shanti, is peace. Shivam, it is auspicious. Advaitam, it is non-dual. It is without any second, there is no any duality there. We will, in the time left, we will continue to discuss about this point. And it is called the fourth one, Chaturtha Manyante. Sa Atma, this is the Atma. Sa Vigneyaha, this should be known. He says this, you need to know this Chaturtha. This is the one thing that needs to be known. This is the translation of this mantra. Now, okay, I wanted to say much more. Okay, let's start and see where we reach, and maybe tomorrow we'll take some more. Purva Paksha. Shankaracharya starts his commentary on this with a Purva Paksha, with an objection. The purpose is to describe the self as possessing four quarters. Right? This is what the objector is saying. Saying, sir, you told me that we are going to discuss 4 quarters of the self. By the explanation of the 3 quarters itself, the 4th becomes proved as different from the preceding 3, which are conscious of the internal world, etc. As such, the negation by such worlds as not conscious of the internal world is futile. The objector says, sir, what you are saying here doesn't giving me any additional information. I don't get here anything new. You told me we have 4 states. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. You told me what is the first. You told me what is the second. What is the third. Now you say the 4th one is neither the first one, nor the second, nor the third. Of course, I know it already. Since you say there are 4, the 4th must be different than all the other 3. So by telling me it is none of these, you don't give me any new information. What are you doing here? Now the Siddhanting says, no, not so. You see, it is always in the same form. It is very interesting the way they present it. Now, for by negation of the illusory notion of the snake alone is the true nature of the rope realized. How are you going to realize that this is not a snake? Only by negating the snake. How are you going to realize it is a rope? Only by negating the snake. This is the way to know the rope, to negate the snake. You don't need to create the rope. You don't need to do something with the rope. You just need to remove the notion of snakeness. Similarly, the same self which subsists in the 3 states is intended to be established as Turiya, as proclaimed by the Mahavakya, that thou art, Tattvamasi. Similarly, the same self which subsists in the 3 states, which is no more in the 3 states, is intended to be established as Turiya. So, when we negate the 3 states, what is left is what we are aiming at. It is that self which we want to realize. That's why it is important. If Turiya is different from the self in the 3 states, then the teachings of the scriptures will be rendered useless, owing to the absence of any means for realizing Turiya, or it will lead to the doctrine of non-existence, Shunyavada. Shankaracharya says here also something very deep, very interesting. He says, remember, the self is not only Turiya. The self is all the 4 padas, is all the 4 states. Even the first 3 are the self. But in them there is superimposition. So by negating the superimposition, we are revealing the self which is all along there. If the self was not in the first 3 states, suppose the self was only Turiya, but the self was not in wakeful state, the self was not in dream, the self was not in sleep, then it will lead to the either to the it will lead teaching the it will lead it either to the notion of Shunyavada. Shunyavada is the doctrine of Buddhism, that the self actually is nothingness, is emptiness. Or it will lead to the conclusion, or it will prevent us to arrive to the realization of the self. Because if the self is not in the 3 states, how are you going to get from the 3 states into Turiya? There is no connection. But the self is the substratum of all, and therefore you don't need to get into the Turiya state. You don't need to get into the self. You are the self. You just need to remove the attributes. You just need to remove those things which are superimposed on the self, and that which is the self is revealed. Right now, we are experiencing wakeful state. If wakeful state was not the self, if it was different from the self, how can you get from here to the self? Shankaracharya says, even this wakeful state is the self. Only it is wrongly apprehended. So what we need is to correct our apprehension. We don't need to get the self. Therefore, we have to accept, we have to understand that the self encompasses all the 4 different states. Like the rope, which through an illusory notion is thought to be the snake, etc., when the one self is falsely thought in the 3 states to be possessing of the consciousness of the internal world, etc., the knowledge arising from the negation of such attributes as the consciousness of the internal world lead to the cessation of the phenomenal world of misery attributed to the self simultaneously. He says, the self, when it is superimposed upon with the 3 states, is taken to be the 3 states. This is the illusion. There is the self, and on top of the self we superimpose waking state. Okay? And then through discrimination, when we negate this waking state, the knowledge arising from the negation of such attributes as the consciousness of the internal worlds, etc., leads to the cessation of the phenomenal world of misery attributed to the self simultaneously. He says, and when finally we remove this erroneous notion regarding the self, when we remove these attributes, when we remove the superimposition, misery, which is associated with it, is going to go instantaneously, simultaneously, at one and the same time. We don't need to do something else in order to get to the end of misery. All we need to do is to remove the ignorance. And this is also an important point that he is going to stress further. He is going to say, don't think that realization is something which is apart from the negation of all these attributes. Once you negate everything which is not the self, what is left is the self. You don't need to do anything further. You don't need to create something new. You don't need to bring anything else. Realization is just what is left after you negate everything which is not the self. Hence, there is no need to seek for any other authority or any other means for the realization of Turiya, other than removing all the false attributes. There is nothing else you need to do. Nothing else is left to do. If there was something else, that will lead to serious problems. That's what he is going to say later on. When the illusory notion of the snake, etc., in the rope ceases, there arises the real knowledge of the rope simultaneously with the discrimination between the rope and the snake. It is going simultaneous. As soon as you know it is not a snake, you know it is a rope. There is no realization, oh, it is not a snake, and then you need to do something else in order to realize it is a rope. No. The moment the false notion of the snake ends, the realization it is a rope is coming simultaneously, automatically. Okay? Our time is up. Tomorrow we'll see. We'll see. If time permits, we will continue because it is so nice.
We can't extend it a little bit?
I'm not authorized. Okay. Huh? We can go on? Okay. Fine with me. So just stop me when you're tired. Evening satsang is at 7:30. But those who hold that knowledge, apart from the removal of the darkness enshrouding the pot, helps one to know the pot, may as well hold that the act of splitting a tree, apart from the removal of the relation of the two members of the body which has to be split, also does something to one of the other or the other two parts. Shankaracharya here, you see, we always have to try to understand to whom is he talking. Because Shankaracharya is writing, he wrote 1200 years ago. At that time there were different schools, different scholars of philosophy that he needs to deal with. They had different propositions, and what he is writing is basically arguments with their notions. So we have to understand. So here he is stressing this point that removal of ignorance is everything. You don't need to do anything else. It seems that in that time there were philosophies saying that just removing ignorance is not enough. You need also to bring knowledge. Okay? Saying it's not enough to remove the ignorance, you also need to bring knowledge. He says, if that was so, if you say that apart from removing the darkness that is enveloping the pot, you need to do something else in order to see it, right? Suppose there is a pot here in the room, okay? Now, but the room is very dark, so I cannot comprehend it, I cannot see it. But now suppose I remove the darkness. How I remove the darkness? By bringing light, right? But suppose I remove the darkness, instantaneously the pot is seen. Do I need to do anything else in order to be able to see it? No. He says if that was the case, that you need to do anything else in order to see it, then also you should say that when you split a tree into two, suppose the other day in the silent walk we have seen a person is cutting wood with an axe, right? So when you cut the wood with an axe, apart from, so when we have a log of wood, according to Nyaya philosophy, a log of wood is actually a union between two parts of the wood. Two halves. You remember yesterday I mentioned about the kapalas, the different parts of the pot. So here he says about the wood. The wood log also have two kapalas, two parts, and they are connected together. When I strike the wood with an axe, what do? Do I just disconnect the two parts, or do I do anything else? Do I do anything else on top of splitting them apart? I don't do anything. Just by separating this union, severing this union between the two parts, they are split. That's it. You don't need to do anything new. So those who say that knowledge needs to be generated apart from the removal of ignorance, they have no base. This is what Shankara is saying here. Okay? The knowledge by which the perception of the pot is intended by removing the darkness and shrouding it fulfills its purpose when it removes the darkness, even as the act of splitting the tree into two fulfills its purpose when the parts are severed. In such a case, the knowledge of the pot manifests at once, and it is not the result of any instrument of knowledge. Okay? He just concludes what we just said. He says, when you remove the darkness, the pot manifests. You can see it. When you split the wood, when you remove the connection of the two parts of the wood, that's it. The wood is split. You don't need to do anything else. In the same way, when you remove ignorance, you don't need any other means of knowledge, any other pramana. You don't need to bring anything new into the... All you need to do is to remove the ignorance. Similarly, now he is bringing it to our topic. Similarly, the instrument of knowledge, which arises from the negation of duality, and which is directed towards the discrimination of the attributes such as conscious of the internal world, etc., which are superimposed on the self, cannot have any other action on Turiya apart from removing the unwanted attributes such as consciousness of the internal world, etc. For the cessation of the attributes such as conscious of the internal world, etc., brings about simultaneously the cessation of the distinction between the knower, the known, and the knowledge. Okay, so now he is bringing it into our topic. He says that the instrument of knowledge, which is arising from negation of the attributes, that is to say, when we negate all the attributes one by one, this by itself is removing the ignorance and allowing the true nature of the self to shine forth. And the superimposition which was done over that which is real, over the Turiya, the fourth state, that is being removed and Turiya is being realized. Yeah, and that happens simultaneously. Again, he's keeps stressing the same thing. He's saying there is no gap in between these two events. The event of removal of ignorance and the event of the shining of knowledge. There is no any gap. It is simultaneously. And that removes the distinction between the knower, the known, and the knowledge. This is called in Sanskrit triputi. Triputi means the split between when we have a knowledge of objects, it always comes with the knower, right? I know this table. Okay, so the knower is I, the known is the table, and the knowledge is the process. Okay? So there are three, there is split into three things. There is the knower, there is the known, and there is the knowledge. It is called in Sanskrit triputi. When we negate all attributes, we are bringing to end triputi. We are bringing to end this split between the knower, the known, and knowledge. Why? Because that state which is Turiya, that state is the self. Who is the self? I am the self. So, who is the knower? I am the knower. Who is the known? I am the known. What is the knowledge? I am the knowledge. There is no such a split, it is only one. There is no process here. Knowledge, known, and knower, they are always appearing in knowledge of objects. But when we talk about Turiya, we have negated all objects. And we are dealing with the substratum which is without any attributes. And therefore, the triputi is being dissolved. There is no anymore knowledge, known, and the knower. The assertion, not conscious of the internal world. Now he is going to explain the different words of the mantra. Okay? So he says, Nanta pragyamiti taijasa pratishedhaha. He explains that Nanta pragya, not aware of the internal, this refers to dream. Remember, this refers to dream. So he says the assertion, not conscious of the internal world, indicates that Turiya, is not taijasa. What is taijasa? This is the self as experiencing the dream. Similarly, the statement, not conscious of the external world, na bahish pragya, is to deny that it is Vishva. What is Vishva? Vaishvanara. This is the self experiencing the waking state. Again, by the expression not conscious of either, na ubhayata pragya, the intermediate state between waking and dream is denied. He says there is an intermediate state when you are not really awake, when you are not really dreaming, even that it is not Turiya. Okay? By the clouds not dense with consciousness, na pragyana ghanam, the state of deep sleep is denied, since it is a causal condition rendering everything indistinguishable. This we explained when we discussed about deep sleep, that in deep sleep consciousness is very dense and therefore there is no distinction between anything. The term not simple consciousness, na pragyam, implies a denial of the knowledge of everything simultaneously. If you take everything together, then we can just say pragyam. No, it is not pragyam. It is Turiya, the fourth state, it is not pragyam. And finally, the statement not unconscious, na apragyam, denies insentience. Insentience means that which is unconscious, where there is no consciousness. It says this is also not Turiya. Okay, I skip a little bit. Okay, because it, i.e. Turiya, is so. What means is so is devoid of all this. It is unseen, adrishyam. He is continuing to explain the mantra. Right? It was nanta pragyam na bahish pragyam na ubhayata pragyam na pragyana ghanam na pragyam na pragyam adrishyam avyavaharyam agrayam alakshanam achintyam. So now he is going to explain this part. So he says, because it is so, it is unseen, adrishyam. Why? You cannot see something which has no attributes. Something which is not aware of the external world and is not aware of the internal world. It is not aware of the intermediate state. It is not aware of it is not dense with consciousness. Something which is like this cannot be seen. What can be seen? Only things which are bahish pragyam or anta pragyam. Only things which are externally seen, as in wakeful state, or internally seen as in dream. Therefore, this Turiya is unseen. Because it is unseen, therefore it is beyond comprehension, avyavaharyam. You cannot comprehend something which you cannot see. And see here refers to all the five senses, not only seeing with the eye. Okay, it implies also smelling and touching and all this, tasting. So something which cannot be experienced to any of the five senses, it is incomprehensible, avyavaharyam. How do you know vyavahara? Vyavahara means the external world. How do you know it? Only through the five senses. Since it is not comprehended by the five senses, it is avyavaharyam. It cannot be grasped by the organs of action, agrahyam. Okay, agrahya means it cannot be grasped. The hands can grasp, the legs can grasp, speech has some capacity to grasp. Like this it says, you cannot grasp it. Therefore, you cannot experience it also through the five organs of actions, which we have discussed in another class. Since it has no common characteristic, i.e. distinguishable mark, it is beyond inference. Now he is explaining a lakshanam. Okay? Lakshana means an indication. Okay? Something which indicates something else. For example, when I see smoke rising from the hill, I infer that there is fire there. Okay, there is a lakshana. The smoke indicates to me that there is fire there. But here there is no any indication. Since it has no common characteristic, there is nothing that can describe it, how can it indicate something? Something which has no characteristics cannot indicate anything. Therefore it is alakshanam. Therefore it is unthinkable. Because it is alakshanam, because it cannot be, it doesn't have any mark that give it any characteristic, you cannot think about it. Can you think about something which has no characteristics? You cannot. Those of you who were in our study of the Kena Upanishad last year, will remember that's the main topic of that Upanishad. To show that that self is beyond all comprehension. You cannot talk about it, you cannot say, you cannot see it, you cannot experience it in any way. So also, indescribable by words. Can you describe something that you cannot think about? No. So it is very clear. Its proof consists in the identity of the self. So how do you prove it? By the identity of the self. After negating everything, the identity of the self which is revealed is the proof. It is not by talking about it. It is not by thinking about it. It is by the very nature of the self that shines forth after negating all the false attributes. This is the proof. I.e., Turiya should be, its proof consists in the identity of the self in all states, i.e., Turiya should be spotted by the undeviating conviction. Sorry, something here. Its proof consists in the identity of the self in all states, i.e., Turiya should be spotted by the undeviating conviction that it is the one self that exists in all the states, such as waking, etc. So, Turiya should be spotted. How can we realize Turiya? How can we spot it? By realizing that this is the substratum of all the other three states. This is the way. By realizing that it is the substratum that underlies all the other three states, we can spot it. Like when we say that every false attributes or every false notion must have a substratum, is a way to reveal the substratum. In the same way that in the same way we realize that this, what we call reality, when we realize it is just a superimposition, we realize there is something underlies it. This is the way to spot it. This is the way to realize it. The attributes, such as conscious of the internal world, etc., pertaining to the states such as Vishva, have been negated. Okay? We have negated all the attributes that are associated with wake, dream, and deep sleep. Now, by showing Turiya as the state in which all phenomena have ceased, the attributes that are said to belong to the states of waking, etc., are denied. Okay, now, by talking about Turiya state, which in that state all the different attributes ceases, because a person, for example, who is what is called nirvikalpa samadhi, we talk about nirvikalpa samadhi. This is a state in which a person transcends wake, dream, and sleep states completely and is in deep samadhi. In this state, there are no attributes, no any words, no any descriptions, nothing. Everything ceases. All the attributes that are associated with the three states are completely negated. And what is left is Turiya. What is left is that which is the fourth. The attributes, I'm reading again, such as conscious of the internal worlds, etc., pertaining to the state such as Vishva have been negated. Now, by showing Turiya as the state in which all phenomena have ceased, the attributes that are said to belong to the states of waking, etc., are denied. We are denying all these attributes are as false. Therefore, itself it is without any change and is auspicious. Now he is continuing to explain the mantra. He says, because it doesn't have, we have denied all these attributes, we have to say it is changeless. It doesn't change a bit. It doesn't have any change in it. And also it is auspicious. Auspicious means it is desirable. It is the right thing. It is blessed. Since it is non-dual, i.e. devoid of illusory notions of difference, it is regarded as Turiya, the fourth, because all the other three states are dualistic. Even deep sleep is dualistic. But since it is devoid of all duality, it is different than the three. It is the fourth state. It is regarded as Turiya, the fourth, because it is distinct from the preceding three quarters, which are but appearances. So it is not that it is a state in itself. It is not really a state, but it is different than all the three. Therefore, it is considered to be the fourth. The assertion, that is the self, that is to be known. This is the last part of the mantra. Sa atma sa vigneyaha. He says, is meant to show that even as the rope is seen to be distinct from the snake, the narrow line on the ground and the stick, etc., which are mere appearances, the self too should be known as distinct from the three states superimposed on it, as declared by the Mahavakya Tattvam Asi, etc. Here Shankaracharya is expanding the example of the snake and the rope. He says sometimes you think it is a snake. Sometimes you think it is a line in the water, and sometimes you think it is a stick. But actually this is just rope. Okay? So he is expanding this example to show us that it can be different states, different types of superimposition. You may superimpose a snake on the rope, you may superimpose a line in the water on the rope, and you may superimpose a stick on the rope. In the same way, you may superimpose waking on the self, you may superimpose dream on the self, or you may superimpose deep sleep on the self. They are all keep changing, but the self, which is the substratum, is completely changeless. And therefore, it is through these three states we should get discrimination and realize and know the true nature. Therefore, he says, Savigyeyaha, it should be known, such as the declaration of the Upanishad, which says, Tattvamasi, you are that. You are that. You should realize your true nature. Okay, it should be known as distinct from the three states superimposed on it, as declared in the Mahavakya, Tattvamasi. Okay, so this is the end of Shankara's commentary. We almost read all the commentary of Shankaracharya to this mantra. Not everything, we left few points outside. Tomorrow we will see the last part of the Upanishad. Okay, a moment of silence. Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Bolo Shri Sadgurudev Swami Sivananda Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Sadgurudev Swami Vishwadevananda Maharaj Ki Jai.